So this is one of those days when I'm inclined to say that I have absolutely nothing to talk about. And I've said this in the past a few times in the course of making a lot of videos, but I've realized something. That is a complete and utter lie. Today I've had a lot of thoughts, all of the things. I've been thinking about how one of the weird things about adulthood is that we experience deterioration in things that we used to be better at. I've discovered that, like, my piano dexterity is worse than it once was, and I think that's one of the things that you don't really experience until adulthood, because, you know, even though you may discard hobbies or move on to other things in your childhood, it always still feels like you're making progress. You're going through the school process and blah, and you're becoming a bigger and better person. Now I'm a much bigger person, but in some ways not better, and I think that's a weird realization and a weird thing to have to kind of reconcile yourself with. I've also been thinking about writing and how it would be good to actually sit down and try and produce something, whether it's, you know, to start up a blog or to try and write a novel or something like that. But I feel like I'm always trying to come up with these metaphors and analogies and sorts of things, and maybe video is not the only medium that is conducive to that. And so it would be cool to try, but also who knows if I have that sort of time. And I've been going back through the YouTube archives, looking at other people's older stuff and some of my own older stuff, and I think, wow, you know, some of this is actually really pretty good, which I know I didn't think at the time. And it's a weird thing, and I wonder if it's the sort of thing where I want to try and actually go back to, like, regular production value stuff, and trying to reconcile that with the fear that if I make this too heavy a commitment, is it the sort of thing that I'm going to bail out on again? And in that same line of thinking, there are individuals who made videos in the past whose content I thought was better and that I liked more, and it got me thinking about the way that we really sort of resent change, that we want more and more of the same stuff, and that when things change it becomes very distressing. You know, even with, you know, kind of trivial things, like if you've watched The West Wing, the fact that there are more than 3 seasons makes it very, very difficult. We want the first initial bit of stuff that's really, really good to keep continuing, but still we can't just be content with things being static, otherwise we'd simply watch the first episode of something over and over and over again. So we have this idea that things can't be transient, but at the same time we wish they were. And I've been thinking about meditation and how this is really sort of a new experience for me and not something that I'm very comfortable with yet, and the insecurity that arises in not knowing if I'm doing things right, and the additional concerns that come with sort of the expectation that, well, somehow I should be feeling better, I should be more aware, and whether applying those expectations and allowing those fears to intrude on the meditative practice itself kind of diminishes the value of it. So I've been thinking about a lot of things, but I still feel like today, I got nothing. And I think that I'm realizing something, and that is that these feelings of emptiness or nothingness or creative blocks or boredom are not genuine. They are tactics to prevent us from actually doing things. It's not that we have nothing to say, it's that we are so gripped in inertia so that we just won't explore any one particular idea. Maybe it's the familiar procrastination, hoping that if we hold off, we'll come up with something even greater than the ideas we've already had. Or maybe it's simply that very traditional creativity well crisis, where you feel like if you expound all of your things, you're not going to have anything left. That the more you put out there, the less you have, which we know is absolutely false, but it's a difficult mental barrier to break. And one of the factors that I know at least is true for me is the fear that any one of these topics may not be relatable, may not be the sorts of things that anyone else wants to hear, and that I need to pre-edit all of my stuff and fully flesh it out before I try and communicate it, for fear that it'll be rejected. So ultimately today, I am filled with incredibly pregnant nothings.